Here is another one on very interesting idea. Again, not so much the death penalty, but similar idea on crime and punishment, written by Dostoevsky. And if for those that have not read the book, Crime and Punishment is a very deep psychological examination. What does it mean to commit the crime, and what does it mean to carry that burden? Commit the crime, and not commit the crime, but commit the murder, and to carry that idea of that somebody's life is ended. And Dostoevsky, as usual, he does an incredibly good job with examining the idea of crime and punishment. What does it mean? What is a crime? Can one commit the crime? If one is to protest against the society, and that's something that also Dostoevsky says in that story, the main character Raskolnikov, who challenges this idea: can the man commit the crime for the greater good? Is the crime itself a protest against the society? So if that is the idea of that is being explored, there are many ideas that have been explored in Crime and Punishment. But another issue is that when you have people that are in authority and they just continue to abuse that authority and continue to abuse that, at what point, if legally things cannot be done, should one take the law in their own hands? And this is very exploration idea that Dostoevsky takes on like a tides of crime that challenge the shores of society, that challenge the idea that if there are certain people who create parasitical relations in society, can they be dealt with, and can the law be taken in their own hands? Now Raskolnikov, who struggles with this idea, who prepares to commit the crime, and I'm not going to say directly what the crime is. It is a murder, but the reason he commits it as a protest against the society, as against the order that has been in place. So, and the person who dies in the story, two people that die, actually one was innocent, the other one not so much. So the idea, and if one commits the crime and if one has a chance to get away with it, should that person eventually come forward and say, okay, I have done this person, or I have done that? And so Dostoevsky explores that idea religiously, philosophically, psychologically, sociologically. He explores it to the depths that it's just not an easy explanation, because he goes down deep into psychology of what drives a person to commit crime. Is it frustration? Is it injustices? Is it imposing one's own will and one's own power? Now, there's one idea that I also have been exploring in Dostoevsky and been thinking a lot, is the idea of extraordinary man. Can the extraordinary man commit a crime? And so the idea that Dostoevsky perpetuates is that it's not that supports and tries to support, at least to some extent, is do we have this, or should that be done as a can we commit a crime because we just simply disagree with somebody, or not simply disagree, but because that person is really the Raskolnikov ends up doing what he does. And then there is a very known passage that discusses extraordinary men, and extraordinary men that take the law in their own hands, and are they justified? And this is kind of like a Napoleon idea, like Napoleon when he took over Europe, marched all the way to Russia, and he was considered an extraordinary man. Can he be justified in running from one land to the other, from one country to the other to take it over? And I'm not going to go into Napoleon, but I'm just saying Napoleon is an extraordinary man. And can that person be committed a crime? Now, we know the society, we have the laws against, murder, but this is where Dostoevsky uses that psychological examination of behaviors that trigger to commit the crime, behaviors that trigger to commit a wrong against somebody that that has parasitical, when I say parasitical relations with a society, that feeds off on society, that uses the society as an instrument towards an end that is not in the best interest of the society. So this is where the crime, the crime and punishment. And what is the punishment for the murder? What can we say that when somebody commits the murder, how should one person be punished and dealt with? And this is where, but also when he commits the murder, it's when Raskolnikov, the main character in Dostoevsky, commits the murder, he goes into this deep analysis of the thinking and the crime, and then he even goes to the police and listens how police is investigating and how far they have gotten to see if he's going to get caught and what they have connected and all that. But so this is where Dostoevsky is just a fascinating writer on crime and punishment. Now, there's another story by Dostoevsky which I will not cover now. It's the Brothers Karamazov, and that's a whole different story. Yes, involves a lot of crime and passion and all that. So does crime and punishment. I will talk more about Dostoevsky because there is so much to discuss about Dostoevsky and the psychology of crime, meaning the triggers, the causes, the triggers, the psychological state of mind before, during, and after the crime. So I will talk a little more about Dostoevsky. It's just a fascinating character, fascinating author, but Raskolnikov is a fascinating character in the story that examines the crime and the society from a nihilistic, psychological, existential crisis and existential point of view through religion, through philosophy, and many other deeply embedded discourses that deal with the philosophical meaning of the crime and passion and hatred and revenge and all that's deeply embedded in crime and punishment. I will talk more about it sometime later. That's another story about Dostoevsky and crime and punishment. Well, we'll talk later again.